Okay? The Battle of Gettysburg. I would take a moment.
Mm-hmm. We have some material on that.
Okay. Well, I think
we even read the Gettysburg Address.
The Gettysburg Address, yeah.
By Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln, uh-huh.
Yeah, and we read it. I've got a copy of it.
It's good. Okay.
We want some video.
When I was in school, we had to memorize the Gettysburg Address.
And we're going to talk about the importance, right, of it for
just a second.
The significance of it for the Americans. Hmm? How do you see it doing sometimes? What are you doing? What are you doing, by the way?
I'm trying to type.
That's your work, then, yeah?
No, I'm trying. I guess we're looking for the second part of our team, yeah?
But yeah, I mean, I just wonder what you are doing because you keep clicking on the port.
All right, let's. I want to get back to the lesson. We're having a little.
I'm experiencing some problems getting back.
We're having a little difficulty. So let me ask you to tell me, in the last 100 years or so, we talked about significant events in American history. I would like you to give some thought to telling me about what you think is a significant event in Russian or Soviet history in the last 150 years or so. Okay, and I'm looking for a significant event in Russian or Soviet history. Okay, so think about that, and let's one at a time tell me what you have. Nadia, I'd like to start with you. What is an event that you think is especially significant?
I suppose there were two significant moments in Russian history for the last 100 years. The first, this one. It's just the Great Second World War, which began in 1941 and ended in 1945. It was rather significant because it included not just civil power, but it included different other countries. And actually it was a rather heavy everything for Russia because we had to struggle for our independence too, and we had to keep our country safe and sound.
Okay, Nadia, thank you. The Great Patriotic War. The Great Patriotic War. We, in the West, how is that war called? In Russia, it's called the Great Patriotic War. What do we in the United States call it?
Second World War?
Daria, what do we call it in the United States?
Not sure.
Okay? We call it the Second World War. The Second World War.
Oh, right. Second World War.
Second World War, or World War II. Okay, Ksenia. So we have the Great Patriotic War. Ksenia, what about yourself? A single event.
From Russian history?
Uh-huh.
I think it is connect with the Great War. It was 1948. It was from 1941 to 1945.
Okay, Ksenia? The Great Patriotic War. Maria, how about yourself? What do you think?
For me, I want to say about the Civil War. In Russia, it was in 1917 and finished in 1920. It was now so long as the Second World War, but had very bad effect, I think, on the citizens of Russia, because many people died in this war.
Okay.
Russian people.
All right, that's true. Maria, thank you very much. Alessia, how about you? What about you yourself?
I think that the most important thing was the revolution in 1917, and it was followed by the Civil War that Maria has talked about. And the revolution changed everything, and the world, and the Russia itself. I think that was the most important thing.
You're right.
It was the great barrier between the old time and the new time in our country.
It was a absolutely major event. You're right. Olga, are you on?
Olga is our teacher, and I just can participate.
Okay. Well, Olga, you're welcome to contribute if you'd like. You're welcome to contribute if you'd like. Raihan, you've been very patient, observing all evening. Would you like to contribute? We'd like to hear from you.
Raihan, давай. Please, she can't hear. She can't hear.
Okay, all right. She cannot hear. Svetlana, your turn. What do you think? What is the single event?
Well, my colleagues have mentioned some of the turning points in our history already. So I'm left with probably disintegration of the Soviet Union, because Lisa spoke about the formation in 1924. I'll talk about disintegration in 1989, because that's another historical event that threw our country nearly in a chaos, and we experienced most of the population great economic difficulties. It was very hard on people, but we managed to overcome them, partly maybe. And Well, it was a great test, okay, for all of us, to get used to the new ways of life, and to move from socialism to this wild capitalism era. So that was difficult. It was a really hard test on all of us.
Okay, good. Well, those are good. We've had.
Can I add something to Svetlana's?
You may, yes.
Okay, so Svetlana mentioned a very important date. It was 1991, sorry. And actually this was the end of a very long Cold War, which began in 1946. It was the Cold War between Russia and its connected war. Some countries in this alliance, and between Russia and this alliance and America, or USA.
Good point. Excellent point. That the Cold War lasted from the end of the Second World War, from basically 1945, 1946, 1947 until the time of Gorbachev, until the time of the fall of the Berlin Wall, someplace in there. But it was over for sure, Daria, as you point out, by 1991. That was the absolute end of it. Okay, very well, nicely done. Those are significant events, and I'm sorry to say that most of them involve wars and bloodshed. It seems that the commentary on our times that we define ourselves in terms of war. All right, let's go back to the Civil War. Let's go back to the Gettysburg Address. Professor Sestakov has uploaded it, and if you open the tab that says Gettysburg, you can see the text of the Gettysburg Address. Everybody see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, it's a little hard to read, but let's go ahead and I would like for us to look at just the very first sentence. Daria, would you read the first sentence?
47 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proportion of the position that all men are created equal.
All right.
Actually, this address is well known in Russia, and every student and every pupil in our school just has to read it just in Russian.
Really?
Yeah.
So tell me in Russian, what is 7 years ago?
87 лет назад.
Huh?
87.
Well, you could say that in English too. You could say 87 years ago. But and could Lincoln have said it that way? Sure, he could have. He could have said 87 years ago. But this is four score. A score is 20.
It's an old manner.
It's old. It's old. It's old. Well, it's old-fashioned. It's very formal. The style is a very elevated. It's an oratorical style. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. That all men are created equal. And what's he referring to there? Our fathers brought forth on this continent. Svetlana, what's he referring to there?
The Declaration of Independence
the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution eventually, but talking about the Declaration of Independence, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. A lot of women today laugh when they hear this because they say, well, it's true that all men are created equal, but at the time, women were not equal. No, how were they not equal?
So they were not allowed to vote.
They were not allowed to vote. They were not allowed to vote. And in fact, they're not allowed to vote. Yeah, exactly right. And they were also not allowed to own property. They were considered chattels. Now we are engaged in a great chattel, not cattle, chattel.
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 Mm-hmm.
Chattel.
What's that? What does it mean?
Well, you'll learn it better if you look it up. Chattel. That can be one of your assignments to look up the meaning of chattel.
Okay.
We're engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. Alessia, read, tell us in modern English and contemporary English what this means. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. What does that mean?
Well, they have to participate in a war, next testing I have to look it up.
Okay. Can you say it, please?
Yes, go ahead, Nadia.
Now we have become best in the world among ourselves, testing whether or not nation based on freedom and equality can last.
Can last, right. Whether a nation, or whether this nation, or any nation can endure, can last. We are met on a great battlefield of the war, and then listen to this next sentence. Maria, read the next sentence, the one that begins, we have come.
We are met on a great battlefield of the war.
And continue.
It has come to dedicate the portion or what? That is choosing the final resting place for those who here give their belief that nation might live.
Good, Maria. What does that mean in modern English?
The last sentence. This sentence say about that many men died in this field during this war.
They died, and we have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place.
Cemetery.
It was their last place where they could be.
They're dedicating a cemetery. They're making a cemetery for the soldiers. Final resting place for those who here gave their lives. They were killed. That nation might live. That nation might live. So this is a cemetery for northern or southern soldiers. Right. And he says, it is fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. What does hallow mean? Hallow. Anyone?
Well, it's a new for consecrate, actually.
It means to make holy. It means to make holy. We say, when we pray, we say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed be thy name. To make holy. We cannot make this holy. And he continues, the brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it. Above our poor power to add and attract. And then Lincoln, in the next sentence, makes a big mistake. A big mistake. Ksenia, could you read the next sentence? This one right here.
Right.
The world will little note no longer remember what we say here, but it can never forget that we did here.
All right, Ksenia, what is Lincoln's big mistake?
Everybody.
He says at the beginning. He says what? He says the world will little know nor long remember what we say here.
So remember it.
Yes.
Remember.
Yes, as I right to understand, that will mean that people can forget about this, but he mistake because many people in our day still remember about it. Is it right or not?
Exactly. Yes, absolutely right. That sure the people remember the battle.
Excuse me, can I answer?
But everyone, yes, just a moment. Everyone remembers what Lincoln said because this speech is one of the great examples of American oratory. Daria, go ahead, please.
He means that the ceremony on the day probably would draw little attention from the public or one, but actually it will never forget, the world will never forget the battle that was here.
Exactly right. Exactly right. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. And now I'd like for somebody to read to the end, please, that from these honored dead, that we here highly resolve. Who would like to read that?
Okay, I may.
Okay, go ahead. You may. That we here highly resolve.
That we here highly resolve that this dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. And that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Thank you. And that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. That concluding phrase, those concluding phrases are perhaps the second most famous part of this speech. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. What do you all think? Is that the ideal government? Of the people, by the people, for the people?
I think it's on the government.
Is that what you think? Daria, is that the ideal government?
I think he changed it on some democratic government, which is based by people.
Ага. Ага, привет, слышно?
Нет, да, нормально. Слушай, ну это самое, мы открыли, смотрим. Я так понимаю, что это как наблюдатель,
Да. Угу. Вас видят.
А?
Вас видят все равно.
Ага, все равно видят?
Да. Ну, если включили камеру. Если ваша камера...
Нет, что
если черненькая, значит не будет. Ну, понимаешь, что вы есть. Осознаешь.
Ну, видно, да, что это самое учительно.
Угу.
Слушай, ну это самое, Гриш, говоришь, что мне интересно, уже это в третьем классе ты слышал, что это самое. Ну, ты же скажи, что тебе хочется.
Алло.
Мне хочется, чтобы с праздником это было общение, просто лишних нету, чтобы там познакомиться, потом поговорить, там, чтобы я научился, у меня там много, чтобы можно было разговаривать.
А преподаватель там же есть?
Ну, мне хочется как бы без преподавателя, чтобы он там не поправлял, чтобы мы сами учились на речь такой. Преподаватель не так интересен, как он, один на один. И как нельзя.
Ну, почему? Можно и так устроить, да? То есть у вас там будут же, вы будете диалоги, там, ролевые игры у вас будут. Вот. Это возможно. Ну, вот просто ты сейчас что-то никого не знаешь, знаешь? Ты туда пришел как новичок, и тебя никто не знает, и ты никого не знаешь. Поэтому, конечно, тебе это кажется странным все. Но, понимаешь, там преподаватель американцы. Она будет с тобой разговаривать так, как ты будешь разговаривать с иностранцами. С русским, конечно, парнем прикольно говорить, но в реальности, вот я тебя сегодня спросил, ты почти ничего, честно говоря, не понял, что я тебя спросил. Вот. Я тебя спрашиваю так, как тебя спрашивал бы американец. Я сейчас сам сижу в Америке, знаешь, я вижу, как люди общаются, и я знаю, как общаются американцы. Вот тебе нужно английский, чтобы общаться не с русскими детьми, а с иностранными детьми или с иностранными взрослыми, для которых английский, у которых не знают русского языка. Смотри, еще такая фишка, да? У нас будут такие, я надеюсь, что я смогу это устроить. Такие проекты, когда ты сможешь общаться с ровесником, который американец. Вот, с американскими детьми. Это вообще будет круто. Я туда специально приехал сейчас в Америку, чтобы вот эти возможности найти, да, чтобы можно было таким, как ты, русским пацанам, общаться с американскими детьми на английском. А они с тобой хотели бы общаться на русском, понимаешь? Потому что они изучают русский язык. И вот я сейчас вот над этим работаю. Если Юра папа слышит, да, то вот ты ему скажи это, да, если не слышит. Вот, так что первое ощущение, да, что это тебе кажется, что это все ты уже знаешь, да, тебе кажется, что это все чужое, и как бы понятно, что такое отторжение, да ну нафиг это. У тебя такая своя как бы идея, да, возникает, что надо по-другому это. Самое главное, что ты постепенно подружишься с этими ребятами, да, ты подружишься с преподавателем, вот, и ты начнешь наконец, может быть, понимать английский язык. А сейчас ты его, честно говоря, не понимаешь. Сегодня я тебя спросил, 5 вопросов задал, ты ему только на один ответил так, как я, как правильно, да. Остальные ты просто еще пока не понимаешь. Этого ничего страшного нет. Просто ты не привык к тому, чтобы с тобой, например, общались на нормальном английском языке. Вот. И ты вот этому, на этих занятиях ты научишься этому. Ты не на русских занятиях в институте, в школе, да, ты грамматику будешь знать хорошо и так далее. Вот. А говорить и понимать на слух ты там не так хорошо научишься. Ну вот.
Ну, понял, да.
Короче, да, ты не пугайся. А где папа?
Вот.
Он слышит, что я говорю? Да.
Я не слышал, о чем вы.
Ну, блин, зря, надо было, чтобы ты слышал. Вот. Ну, я объяснил Грише, да, в чем фишка, да, что... Смотри, из 5 вопросов, которые там из 7, которые он задал, он понял только один вопрос. Да. Он не понимает речь. Я его спрашивал, так как я пытался имитировать так, как говорил бы с ним американец, да. Толку-то от того, что вот он понимает своих школьных ровесников, которые с ним за одной партой сидят, русских, да. Он же в реальности не с русским будет на английском говорить, он будет говорить с людьми, которые не знают русского. Для этого ему надо общаться вот с американцами, да, или там с англичанами. И никто ему такой возможности не даст, кроме нас. За такие деньги, да. Вот. Второе, да, он почувствовал, конечно, отчуждение. Какие-то пацаны, непонятно кто, да, какой-то преподаватель. И, конечно, ему трудно будет. В первый раз это трудно, это естественно. Потом он познакомится с ними, он начнет с ними общаться, начнет с преподавателем общаться, она начнет ему вопросы задавать. И уже с первых же 10 минут он поймет, что ага, нифига себе, во-первых, со мной лично разговаривает американский преподаватель. Во-вторых, он поймет, что он нифига не понимает, а преподаватель будет помогать ему. Постепенно он поймет, что да, вот так, вот так, вот так, маленькими шажками он будет идти к овладению языком. Вот. И третье, да, я ему еще сказал, да, смотри, я вот, одна из целей моей поездки, да, это вот контакты, да, я налаживаю контакты. Тут есть такая школа уникальная в Техасе, где я сейчас нахожусь, где преподают русский язык. И там есть преподаватель прикольный, который, американец, который хочет со мной сотрудничать. Смысл в том, что мы будем связывать школьников американских с русскими школьниками. И они будут так вот общаться, как мы с тобой сейчас, да. Американцам русские интересны, потому что они изучают русский язык, а русским, понятно, интересно американцам, что они английский, да. Вот. И они будут так вот, такие будем делать проекты, они познакомятся, да. Они будут общаться и в чате, и в блоге, и у нас контракты с Омским университетом.